how did you develop those relationships, and like what advice would you give specifically kind of more towards like insurance agents that are going to watch this? There's going to be a lot of insurance agents that are going to watch this. So like what
Hmm.
advice would you give them to like expand their networks, and maybe even just like in the prospects client area, because you're dealing with very high net worth individuals. These aren't like random. I mean, maybe some of them are mom and pop shops that are not like loaded people, but they all have some levels of money. So how would you, or what advice would you give somebody kind of trying to expand their networks and like biz in professional network and also like client network?
Yeah, I mean, I think both. If I if I could go back and yell something at myself even louder, 5 years ago, it would just be go all in on creating valuable content, and whether that's
Boom.
you know, and whether that's video, whether that's text, whether it's a combination of both, whether you're creating mailers, but the key is not just content, but like actually valuable content and figuring out, if you're just starting day one, create valuable content that can both grow your network and grow your business. And by that, I mean target clients and then also target people in the business that are either just great connections or can also lead to future business. So that was something I always knew, going back to 2017, 2018. Like I knew I should have been doing the social media stuff.
Mm.
But again, you know, like most of that was just personal. Like I wasn't personally in a space where I was still very shy, timid. Like I'm definitely more of a naturally introverted person. And, part of being able to break out and do this on my own under my own brand is that I can do it however I want. And so I don't have to worry about some video that I made and if I'm going to get pushback from some senior person because of X, Y, and Z for whatever reason. I worked at companies where they made fun of people who did social media 3 years ago, and now the CEO's on every single social media channel there is, and it's like it. If you were like I was at the time, not uh, not self assured enough, didn't have the self confidence to say, fuck you, I know this is the right way, I'm going to do it anyways. And you let that person influence you, you lost out on 3 years of growing your business and network and doing valuable things. So, what I would tell me is even more so just find a way to be valuable. And if, there's a place for all different types of marketing and prospecting, cold calls, cold emails, cold texts, handwritten notes, uh, typed out letters. There's a place for all of it. You just cannot the scalability of social media. And if you can build that over the course of, call it 2 to 6 years, not 2 to 6, when you fast forward, 3 to 5 years, it's going to solve all of your it's going to solve 90% of your new business development problems. That's what I believe. So that's what I would tell myself. And if you're not in an environment that supports that, I'd go find one that does.
For sure, for sure. Dude, I think I also thought that was interesting to see you kind of like pivot into kind of more content strategy. Like I've been promoting and yelling at people in insurance, like, yo, dude, literally, like, especially because insurance is so customer facing, like everybody could be your client kind of in insurance, like personal lines,
Mm-hmm.
auto insurance, home insurance, life insurance. And then commercial is getting a little more complex because you're talking to business owners specifically. And then if you have niches within businesses, like you do with different types of, Taco Bells or whatever, I see you're doing a lot of different stuff. So it's not just Taco Bell. I know you were focused on Taco Bell, but yeah, it's interesting. Like I noticed you started to do that. And then I was like, okay, something clicked for Tyler where he was like, okay, this is long term going to make sense and make and work. And I think it's just super important what you just said. for to be in the right environment where they allow you to do that. It's hard to do that working for a company that has their own marketing strategies. Um, but yeah, man, I think that, dude, I'm glad you shared that because that's like a really, I've always believed that. And I think keep it up, Tyler. I think you're doing a great job in that. Where do you see like this going with commercial real estate in like the near future? Like, how do you see this evolving? First off, with like the social media and also just the actual market heading. Like, where do you see it kind of going?
Anyone who tells you they know what's going to happen with the market specifically, um, I'd run away faster from those people. But you know, I think looking forward to the summertime, summertime is traditionally things slow down. Kids get out of school, um, market generally slows down as people go on vacations, things like that. The tough thing we have this year is that there's an anticipation, or rather, whether that's an anticipation of something that's going to happen, or whether that's blind hope that the Fed is going to start bringing rates down and cutting rates. Um, the outlook for that looks dimmer and dimmer from our perspective, in that it could be longer before they do start to decrease rates, and it could be at a slower pace than what was forecasted for the start of the year. All that's to say, that's kind of leading up into the summer months where we might start to get those rate cuts, and it's also an election year, a presidential election year, which again, that kind of goes back to the start of the conversation. It creates one of those events historically where people pause and wait and see, because depending on who gets elected and what they're promising as they're campaigning, there's different policies on either side that can have positives and negative that can have positive and negative impacts on the real estate market. And so investors, buyers, sellers will kind of place their bets and decide if they're going to hold out and wait and see uh, how the election transpires. And so typically it's just things slow down in presidential election cycles. So it's kind of the two big things of the what's going to happen with interest rates. You know, is the political pressure going to force the Fed to start to lower interest rates? I don't know.
Mm.
I just know that from my perspective, looking forward, it's like run very hard for the next, call it next 90, 120 days,
Mhm.
and with a heavy emphasis on the next, 60 to 90 days, because we could hit the summer and things could really slow down even more than they have for the last 12, 18 months. So but you know there's a lot going on in the world. Anything could happen. You know and I don't pretend to know exactly what's going to happen. What I think the second part of your question was, where do I see social media
Social
marketing?
media
How do I see
developing
that
with that.
impacting commercial real estate?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How do you see like it's interesting seeing what you were saying, like some of these CEOs jumping in doing that stuff. Do you think that's gonna have play a role in also like people's successes in commercial real estate?
And this is all my opinion. I think there's certain personalities. I mean, because there's one thing about, I'm sure in insurance as well. There is no shortage of personality types in commercial real estate brokerage. I mean, every every type of human under the sun can be successful in commercial brokerage if they do a few of the right things. But I think there's certain people who, if they did like a Gary V model and just really went all in, they could be the next Gary V. I'm and and you've got to also want to do that, right? It's not just
Right,
that it's
right,
an
right,
option,
right.
but you also got to want to do that. But I think I think in the space that I play, especially servicing more private clients and even working with more merchant developers to link private client buyers with the product that merchant developers are developing and selling, it lends itself very well to social media, as opposed to, if I was working with multinational corporations and we're handling, uh, tens of millions of square feet of their
Mhm.
industrial portfolio, and it's spread across the country, and I'm working with 20 different decision makers within the company, then definitely you could utilize things like LinkedIn more.
who's gonna see that on
What's
TikTok?
that?
Like who's gonna see
For
that?
sure.
What CEO is gonna see that on TikTok?
For sure, for sure. But you have avenues like LinkedIn, and that's where if your brokerage is more business to business, if it's more B2B, like LinkedIn is great for that. Like
Mm.
most of my like most of my clients, private clients, they're they're retired, they have their nest egg, like they're still looking to improve their position, of course. It's more about wealth preservation. They're not on LinkedIn trying to network. And I'm painting with a broad stroke here. Some of them are, but from what we've found, it's like they're more likely to be on social network space like
Facebook.
Facebook and even leading into Instagram because that's how they connect with their kids and their grandkids, and that's how they keep in touch with
They need
old high school friends that they went to school with, things like that.
what they need, Tyler, is they all need to have life insurance to preserve their their nest egg and not get hit with these massive capital gains taxes that the Uncle Sam's going to hit them with a $12 million threshold. Anything above 12 million, they get taxed up the yin yang. So, dude,
Yeah,
they all need life insurance to protect these massive assets that you're selling them.
yeah.
That was my pitch. I threw my pitch in there. Let's go.
Good. Do you advertise? Have you done advertising on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm very good at generating final expense life insurance leads to seniors, but I have not
That's
tried
right.
anything else at this point. But I am able to generate good amount of life insurance leads. Um, I don't know how we went down this route, but this first thing I thought of was like for older, like retired people that have these nest eggs and they're buying up, they're putting money into real estate. Who knows if they have like their real financial assets completely protected. That's where we come in as like insurance advisors to look at these things and be like assessing you know, um, their whole portfolio as a whole, like, cash, how much property do you own? And then we protect it. Actually, that kind of leads into my next question, what I was going to ask you too. What advice would you give to like an insurance person if they were trying to surround themselves with more people like you, because you do also have that network of these people, these private clients that are like you already have the relationship. It would be an easy transition referral for like let's just say an commercial insurance agent or a life insurance agent.
Hmm.
What would you recommend or what advice would you give to an insurance person to network with people like you and bring value to you? Like how could they bring value to you?
You mentioned it was a light switch went off for me, right? And it's very much kind of how it happened, if you will, with getting really getting going on social media for me was making a connection for how I could actually add value while utilizing how I could add value utilizing social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'd struggled with how I could do this where it wasn't just self-serving. Obviously,
Right.
I'm doing it with an end goal that it leads to relationships, which lead to more business, which obviously is mutually beneficial. It's not, I'm not just out there doing it, from the goodness of my heart, right? There is an end goal for why you do it, but I just had such a hard time figuring out how to how to add value through that medium, through the social media medium. And so once I once I once it clicked for me, it became much more easier. That it became much easier. It was just about doing the work now. It was like, okay, I know how to do this now. I see the avenue for how I can add value. And so now I just have to go do it. And so, I think part of that process is uh, you've got to figure out whether you're an insurance agent and you want to target commercial real estate brokers, whether you're an insurance agent, you want to target commercial lenders. Like it's not the lender's job to tell you how to be really valuable. Like
I
I'm
see
trying to
what
think of the
you're
right way to say it. If an insurance agent called me tomorrow and said, hey, I've got a client, I got a client, I just signed up a new policy for them. we got to talking, and he owns, three triple net properties that he wants to evaluate and potentially sell. He's not sure what to do with them. Could you take a look at these? That's super valuable to me, right? Um, I mean that's a that's a great phone call, right? Um, but that's just one example. Like I think if you're trying to just connect people, then if you're trying to connect people, then you just have to try and figure out how you making a connection between, me and you, or with me and one of your clients, is going to be valuable to both of us. Is your client going to benefit from it? Can it also benefit the person that can it benefit me? Am I the right person to even handle this? Right. So it takes work. It takes work to figure out how to be valuable, the same way it takes work to figure out like how to create valuable content at whatever stage in the business you're at. Because if you're just starting out, you don't have a Rolodex of, you know, 1,000 potential clients that you can call up a broker and say, hey, I've got all these contacts for you. So uh, maybe it's putting together a content piece that somehow relates something that changed in the insurance world that's going to impact.
Mm.
One of the things I do think about, and I'm kind of thinking through this as we're talking. One of the things that's obviously happening is with the rising cost of insurance in the triple net space,
Yeah.
the tenants are paying for that insurance, and so if
Right.
with these leases, it's if it's a 20-year lease, they're locked into their rent, and their rent may only be increasing 1 or 2% a year, or 7 to 10% every 5 years. But if their insurance costs are going up 20, 30, 40%,
Yep.
that's directly impacting their profitability. And 5 years ago, even though their rent only went up 10%, what does their P&L actually look like with all these other costs going up? You know,
That they're locked into,
so
right?
that they're locked into, right? Because they are most triple net leases do not have a carve out that puts a cap on insurance expense, right? It's they're paying for the insurance, and it is what it is, right? Same with the taxes. They can contest the taxes, but they're paying the taxes. And so in certain markets, for example, working with a client who's got a national national fast food tenant in Cook County, which is Chicago. The property taxes are astronomical. They're crazy. And so the tenant's going to close down and leave the store. But if that tenant was generating the same sales at a store 30 minutes south, it would be an average performing store. But the property taxes are so high, and the tenant's responsible for paying those. So all that's to say, if you're for example, in this example, if you're an insurance agent, you can figure out a
Mm.
way to break that down simply for a broker such as myself, where then I can communicate that to clients and say, here's what's going on. This was something, I wasn't thinking of, or I didn't know enough about, because I'm not an expert in commercial property insurance.
Right.
Then it benefits my client. Like that's a great way to
Value.
add value. And so, yeah.
That's great stuff, man. No, yeah, I think that it really is. I'm a big believer. This is from the book Think and Grow Rich. That your income is simply a measurement of the amount of service and value that you render. So if you can figure out how to
Hmm.
do more service and more value, especially at scale, social media is a great way to do that. But just even talking to customers and like really bringing more value, knowing more, having the right network, having the right people around you, plugging in the right. So it is really all it comes down to is like bring more value. So yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I love it. I also want to be respectful of your time, Tyler. I know it's late where you're at too.
Oh,
You're
we're good.
yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw this as kind of more like a wrap up question for you. What one kind of piece of advice or encouragement would you give to people that are that already took the leap, new insurance agents or new commercial real estate brokers in brokerage, or starting up their own brokerage. What kind of encouragement or advice would you give them to kind of push through?
Yeah. Uh, Keep going. That's like, it's one of the simplest phrases. It's something I've used since I was probably 22, 23. Um, Two words, keep going. And it's like, and the older I get, the deeper into business that I get, the more it's just like, if you can find a way, if it's something you want to keep doing and you can find a way to just keep doing it and getting through, the valleys that you're going to encounter, you will ultimately get to where you'll ultimately get to where you're trying to get to. It might take you a lot longer than you thought. I mean, my route has been an absolute roller coaster up to this point, and it probably will be the whole way. And I think just settling into that and getting comfortable and, just keep plugging along and going along for the ride, like it's gonna work out. Just continue to do what you need to do to keep going.
For sure. Yeah, man, I agree 100%. I'll say this kind of yeah, I guess vulnerably, like today was one of those days for me. I feel like, dude, I like everything was just hitting me. Like I was getting real bloody, clients complaining, there's just client issues, team issues, losing big deals, like it all just kind of like sometimes there are those days where it's just down. And yeah, those are the days where you sit there and you're like, man, like, dude, I could give up today. Like this is one of those days where it's like, this is, I could throw in the towel and just call this like, I'm over this whole thing.
For
Um, dude,
yeah.
it's like, I feel like that's not talked about enough, especially when you're starting your own thing. Cause like, there is no falling back on the boss. Like there's no, you know,
Hmm.
there's no one to complain to about the stuff. Like you're sitting there and it's just you, and you know that all the decisions and all the results are essentially a result of what decisions you've made. And I think the one thing that I like to take away and advice I give to people too is also just it's easy to be positive. And this is a Conor McGregor quote. I'm stealing this straight from Conor McGregor. Um, it's easy to be positive when everything's going good, but the real challenge is being positive when everything's up against you or is not going well. And dude,
Hmm.
yeah, that's that roller coaster you're talking about, like that with is it's inevitable. So yeah, man, I think that's a great piece of advice. I think a lot of things you've talked about throughout this conversation are like I really needed to hear almost too, just because like even just the well-being, like being healthy and like being happy, with the 80% of your health that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. Because when you break your arm or you do your knees messed up and you can't walk, you're like, damn,
Yeah.
every day that I was walking is like was pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll say I just got over, I had COVID 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it hit me pretty hard for like 5 days. And so I'm like fresh off that, where that morning when I finally woke up and it was like, okay, the light at the end of the tunnel, like we're on the up and up. You're like, holy shit, like just feeling baseline, right? Like this this is something to be like, just being able to go out and go for a walk and not be winded, and like to be able to enjoy that experience as opposed to having it be, that's where it's just, I'm fresh off of that. And so it re-ingrained that perspective for me, because it was 5 days of just like, I mean, not just no gym. It was just like I just wanted to sleep and, be I just wanted to sleep and be done with it and wake up when,
Yeah.
when I was fine. And I was fine. That was the first time I'd really been sick since the last time I had COVID 2 years ago. So, um, like,
Dude, that's
but
something that was
going through an
forced,
experience like
that was forced on you, but like also like that is something you can practice, right? Like I'm sure you probably do things to like practice perspective and like you look at things because you've always been such a positive guy, dude, and like you've always had such a positive outlook on stuff. So I do really appreciate that about you. And I think yeah, what is that? What do you think it is, Tyler?
I don't know. uh, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. Like this is, I it's the last 12, 18 months, but super, super challenging. Um, I think, and I have, you have those moments, and I think it's okay, right? Like, I think some of the positivity can just be like all positive all the time, and just failing to realize that sometimes days just suck and situations suck. Like if you can have your moment to, if you want to sit there and be like, all right, this evening I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm really just gonna think about whatever it is. Like you're gonna go through it. You're gonna go through this little struggle and be like, but when tomorrow, like there's nothing I can do about it. Like tomorrow I gotta wake up. There's gonna be a new set of challenges. Like I can either be pissy for the rest of my life, or I can switch that as soon as I decide to switch it. And sometimes you need the day before you switch it. Sometimes you need to do it literally that instant and just be like, it's not worth it. Like sometimes things stack up a little bit too much. I'll give you an example. Like I had a really tough week last week. This is a great example. I had a really tough week last week, and the weather was beautiful here in Denver for the weekend. It was like 68 degrees on Saturday. It was perfect. Me and my girlfriend would go on a nice bike ride to Golden. It's like a 12 miles each way. Beautiful bike path runs along the river. We're biking on our way. I go down to get my bike. I've got two bikes, one older bike. I get down there. My older bike has a flat tire. I ran over a piece of glass or something from the night before riding back from the grocery store. So I'm like, oh shit, I got a flat tire on that. So I grab my road bike. We take off, headed to Golden. It's going to be like an hour bike ride. We get about a mile and a half into our ride. My front tire on that bike goes flat. Oh shit, this sucks. So we Google nearest bike shop. We've got to ride the bikes over there. It's about 2 miles away. Ride the bikes over there. Have to pump up the tire multiple times on the way there. Finally get to the bike shop. They switch out the tire. It's fine. It's still, it's a beautiful day, whatever. So we jump on. Now we've got to cruise even faster to get to uh, the brewery in Golden we were going to. So we do it. We get there. It's great. All right, we hop on the bikes, head home, stop at the grocery store on the way back. As we're pulling out of the parking lot on the bikes at the grocery store, my rear tire on the bike has a flat tire, totally out.
Oh my God.
in that moment, in that moment, I mean, I wanted to throw my bike through a car window. Like everything from the week that I had kind of moved past, all just came up to that moment. And in that moment, I told my girlfriend, I said, you go walk home. Like, I got to walk the bike. So I took like, it was about a mile and a half walk with the bike back. And I just had to go through it like with myself. You hit all that's to say, like, eventually you just hit your point. And for different people, that's a different point, different situations you can handle more. In that moment, that's an example of like, I just needed to be in a dark place for like
And
30 minutes and
and
then
bro,
start to recover from that once I got home.
that's also part of one of like the aspects. And it's funny, I was talking to Senna about this, our buddy Senna. Um, the amount of stress that you can take on as a business owner, like, and what that really kind of like measures out to in your results. I'm a believer, dude. Like the more you can take on and the more you can handle extreme levels of like stress like that, because you're gonna have a really
Hmm.
shitty week and you're gonna have all back-to-back stuff that just happens to you, and then your tires go flat, and then you're sitting there and you want to just throw everything off your, throw the bike through everyone's car. And being able to like deal with that and then keep moving forward in a positive mindset. And like obviously you need your, yeah, like you said, the down days a little bit sometimes, but dude, that's part of it, man. Like, and people don't see it. They just see all the glamorous things. Like they see the nice trips that you go on, or like the cool, business photo that you're taking with the right, after you close the big deal or whatever. And they don't see that there are
Hmm.
days where you're just in a deep, dark, evil business world that's just trying to fight, and you're at war.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where, like, even if, because part people want to work with people who are, who they know, like, and trust, right? And they want to be able to relate to you. And so if you're just getting started, going back to kind of the social media thing and how can I add value? It's like if you're a starting out, whether it's a broker, insurance agent, whatever, just because, and for your line of work and my line of work, most of your clients you're targeting, whether they're a business owner or whether they're a private individual who owns, a multi-million dollar piece of real estate or a portfolio of tens of millions of dollars of real estate or businesses, those people more than likely have gone through what you're going through.
True.
And if you may not be able to tell them everything about their business on your first day in your business, but they've been in your shoes before. And if you even just have the humility to, whether it's document that, share that story, talk about it, like they're going to relate to that. Like they're going to relate to your experience and your ability to push through that. Like you're going to become more relatable to your prospect, if you will, or your potential client
Yeah.
by sharing that. And that's something that you can do without, that's something you can do day one. Like that's something I wish I did. I can talk about, like, I used to, get up at 4:30 and do a 30-minute workout and then be on PCH to go to the office by 5:30, and get there at 5:45 and stay until 8. Like you can talk about it after the fact. Like I wish I had more to, like, personally look back on and, like, remind myself on the hard days, like, whether it's video, whatever. But also, like, I think if that was out there in the world, people can see that you have walked the walk, and there's always going to be somebody who worked more and did whatever, but like they can see your journey. And uh, so, all that's just to say, like, there are ways that you can share and put yourself out there that's going to attract the type of people that you're looking to attract.
Dude, Tyler, I'm gonna wrap it up there. I want to be respectful of your time. I think we've brought enough value to the peeps out in the world. Um, and I'm sure hopefully this reaches some people in the commercial real estate world as well, if you want to share it. If people want to find you, Tyler, or if they like want to work for you, no joke, like there's actually a lot of people that are like considering going into commercial real estate or real estate. It is an extremely lucrative business, as a lot of people can see, and I've seen from watching you and our other buddies that are in commercial real estate. Where should people hit you up? How can they find you, and like where can they follow you?
Yeah, I'm on, not super active on Twitter, but Instagram, TikTok are both Triple Net Tyler. Twitter is Tyler H Grove. Um, Triple Net Tyler on YouTube as well.
Triple net,
So
Tyler.
yeah, Triple Net Tyler. We
And
needed something catchy.
nice. I like that. It's honestly, dude, that's a that's a great name. But yeah, we'll pop
Yeah.
up your Instagram, and then your business, your the business logo. Or what about your like website? Like what's your website?
Yeah, you can just go to www.harrison with three N's, HARRISONNN.com. And my information's out there. I always like to say, if you're interested in getting into brokerage, then being able to track down somebody's contact information and reach out is that's that's the basic building block. So it's good practice.
Yeah, so maybe we should have hid we won't put up this stuff and make them find you. If they can't find you, they probably should just quit the business.
Yeah, I don't like to think that that's the hard and fast rule, just because I think it's a little cliche, but it's definitely, I mean, it's definitely the way 99.9% make it in.
It's true, man. Yeah, I mean that's like a first little test, I feel like. So yeah, it's always I think I've heard that from commercial brokers and I believe in that too. So anyways, Tyler, yeah, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I think this is gonna bring a lot of value to people and get some like, different perspectives on the market and what's going on. So, dude, yeah, hopefully we run this back in person one of these days, possibly in Mexico, drinking some tequila or something on a balcony. Like
That'd be great.
the good old days. So
That'd be great.
but
Thanks for having me on.
no, I appreciate it, man. All right, we'll see you.